Ready whenever you are.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Klauba. I'm the Stewardship Program Coordinator for the Sauerland Conservancy. Thank you for joining us for our Facebook Live event. Today, we are at the Sauerland Conservancy's parking lot. What we're doing is we're getting ready for our Keep the Canopy campaign for people to come pick up their trees. So, if you're not familiar with the Sauerland Mountain region, it is a 90 square mile contiguous forest in central New Jersey. It's an area that's really important for many species of migratory birds, and it's a habitat for endangered species like the bobcat, and tons of pollinators and insects. It is the headwaters for millions of people's fresh water that flows down through the Raritan and the Delaware River. And so the Sauerland Conservancy is a small nonprofit organization that's dedicated to protecting, promoting, and preserving the Sauerland Mountain region. Today I want to give a huge thank you to Rosedale Mills and Pinelands Nursery. They are sponsoring this project. We have been on the phone with John Hart and Fran Krismer, and they have been so phenomenally helpful with getting the fencing details put down and helping us pick out our native trees that we're going to be putting together with these tree kits. I need to give another huge thank you to our ACT committee. ACT is the Ash Crisis Team, and it's these volunteers that are on this committee are just phenomenal. So thank you, Sage and Meg, Claire, Hillary, Lynn, Rue, Mary Lou, Maya, Karina, Lori. You all have been phenomenal. These committee meetings have been filled with such creativity and just the hardworking thoughtfulness of these volunteers has just been absolutely phenomenal. I cannot thank you enough for all that you're doing to put together these campaigns, from the visuals to the little videos that are going to come out. They're just absolutely amazing. Thank you for what you're doing. I also want to thank our stewardship committee, Roger and Dan and Ray. They're over there cutting 6 length of deer fencing, so they're staying socially distanced. They're 6 foot cutting of fencing, creating these deer protection fences for our seedlings that we're going to be giving away and selling. We also need to thank some of our other volunteers. There's some Boy Scouts out here with their dads cutting fencing, and Lori's son Will is out here cutting fencing, and he's also driven down to Pinelands Nursery for us to get all of our seedlings. So thank you, Will. And most importantly, thank you to our members. Your membership is what makes this work possible. And if you're not a member and you're listening, please consider becoming a member. Your membership helps us do stewardship programs like this. Your membership helps us do educational programs like our guided hikes and train station seminars and all the videos that we put out. Your membership helps our advocacy work to stop dangerous and unnecessary development of the Sauerland Mountain region, and just all the things that go into saving this region and protecting it for generations to come. So your membership makes a really big difference, and I really appreciate every single one of you that comes out and becomes a member or volunteers or donates to this organization. We couldn't do what we do without you, so thank you. So today I want to talk about Keep the Canopy and what that is and why it's important. So when you go out to the forest, there are many layers in the forest, and we generally break them out into 6 layers. So the bottom layer is our ground layer and our soil, so that's where our soil is, our topsoil, our microbes, the bacteria and fungi that live in there. all the other organisms that make the soil and the base of our entire ecosystem is right there in that ground layer. The next layer up is a herbaceous layer, and so that's filled with herbaceous plants. So those are the non-woody plants. So our perennials and annuals, wildflowers and grasses, sedges, non-woody vines are in that category. The next layer up is our shrub layer, and so that includes shrubs and low bushes and vines, like raspberries and stuff like that would be in that shrub layer. The next layer is our understory canopy. And so that is our larger shrubs, that is our immature trees. And then we have our canopy layer, and that's where the mature trees are. And that is sort of the top of the forest layer, but there's one more layer above that, and that's the emergent layer. And that's the really, really big, massive trees that go up over the forest canopy and are at the top. And so our forest has been threatened, not just by habitat fragmentation and development, where people are coming in and cutting down trees and building buildings, but they have some other threats. So one of the biggest threats right now are deer. Deer in this area are about 10 times the number that what they should be. So usually, or which I should say not usually, but back in the day, naturally, there's about 10 deer per acre. And right now there's about 100 to 150 deer per acre in the Sourlands. So that's causing a really big issue, because with there being so many deer, they just eat everything in the understory canopy, or in the understory and the herbaceous layer. So, and they're eating mostly natives. So our entire herbaceous layer and our shrub layer and our understory layer are pretty much gone because of the deer. And then we have a really big invasive plant species problem. Japanese honeysuckle, Japanese barberry, autumn olive, multiflora rose, Japanese stiltgrass. They're not really being eaten by the deer, and so they are really just creating this understory and this herbaceous layer. But the problem with that is that our native pollinators and birds and mammals are not using those plants because they did not co-evolve with them, or they do not provide the nutritional value for these plants that they need, or for these animals that they need to survive. And then the next big issue is our invasive pest species, such as emerald ash borer and spotted lanternfly, which is a new one. And so what those invasive insects are doing is that they're attacking our tree species, our mature canopy species, like the ash tree with the emerald ash borer. And 20% of the Sourlands, up to 70%. So over at Bald Peak Mountain, there's about 70% ash tree canopy cover. And so the emerald ash borer is coming in, and it's killing those trees, and those trees are dying. And so all along our entire forest ecosystem, we're being attacked. And so in the next few years, about 1 million ash trees are going to die as a result of the emerald ash borer. And so we created this ACT campaign, Ash Crisis Team. And so what we are doing is that we're encouraging residents to buy native plants and protect them from deer herbivory and plant them on their property. About 1/3 of the land in the Sourlands is privately owned, and so the choices that you make on your property can affect positive change on our ecosystem. And so what I want everybody to do is to buy native plants. I'm always going to tell you, first thing to do, go buy some native plants and protect them from deer herbivory. And if you are able to remove the invasive plants on your property, this is creating a healthy and diverse ecosystem, and also creating a seed source that can go out and help to replenish our forest. Our seedlings are the future of our forest, and if there's no seedlings due to deer pressure, due to invasive plants out-competing the native plants because the deer are not eating the non-natives, so it just allows them to keep spreading and spreading and spreading. And if we're not protecting our seedlings, when the mature canopy dies, there's going to be nothing to take its place, so it's going to be a really big problem. So I want to talk to you about the trees that we picked for the ACT campaign. The first tree a big tree. It's going to be between 90 to 150 feet tall. It is massive and it is gorgeous. It grows really tall and straight with very few lower branches. So it's sort of like this big column. And it has really beautiful flowers, even though you probably won't be able to see them because they're up at the top of the canopy. But they're a really important food source for hummingbirds and other early pollinators. The seeds are also eaten by birds and by squirrels and other mammals. So it is an important food source when it's flowering and when it's seeding. And it's also a nesting habitat for lots of bird species. It's a beautiful tree. Our neighbor has a huge one on their property, and it's magnificent. It's a great choice if you have the room for it. This one right here is Persimmon. The Latin name for persimmon is Dioscorus virginiana. The height of this tree depends on where it's planted. So if it's in a nutrient poor area, it's probably only going to be maybe, 50 feet. But if it's in an area with a lot of really rich soil, it can grow to 100 feet tall. The bark of this tree is also really interesting. It looks like little tiny squared pieces all put together, almost like a little jigsaw. And it's just really lovely to look at. And it also has edible fruits. The fruits are about 1 to 2 inches around. And they're super sweet when they're ripe. Don't eat them when they're not ripe. They are very, very astringent. I made that mistake last fall. I saw one out in the woods in the Sourlands. I got really excited and I pulled off a fruit and I bit into it and it was like, whoa! It was so astringent. But I'd only had sweet ones, ripe ones before that, and I wasn't aware of how astringent it was going to be. So just wait until they're really ripe. It's also a great tree for pollinators. It supports something like, I think, maybe the eastern swallowtail tiger. Eastern tiger swallowtail, I think, is one of the, this is one of the host species for that. And it also provides quality nectar for pollinators. And again, it's a food source not just for us, but for mammals too, such as raccoons. Foxes even eat these fruit. And so it's another great choice, and that's an interesting choice too. This one right here is called Shad Bush, Emelanchier canadensis. It also has a couple other common names. You might have heard it as Juneberry or serviceberry. This is a small tree or a shrub. Usually you define between a tree and a shrub versus whether it has multi-stems or a single trunk. This generally will have multiple stems, so we classify it as a shrub. And it can grow 25, 30 feet tall, and it has very, very showy white flowers in the springtime. It's a great choice for a tree, an accent tree on your property. And it also has edible drupes in Juneberry. So later on in the spring, they'll have edible fruits that we can eat, and birds love it. It's also a really important tree, or shrub rather, for pollinators, a lot of quality nectar. It's a host species for quite a few species of butterflies, and it also provides a food source and a nesting source for birds. And so we're going to add 2 more species to our ACT campaign. We're going to pick them up next week. We are adding Eastern Redbud, which is an endangered tree species, or shrub species rather. It's Cercis canadensis. It's another smaller tree. It's about 20 to 30 feet tall with multi-stems, and it has the most beautiful purple pink flowers I think I have ever seen, and it's prolific in its flowers. It's really, really beautiful. It also has sort of heart-shaped leaves, which are really interesting to see too, and it has a really high pollinator value with all those purple flowers. It's one of the more earlier flowering shrubs and trees. So it provides a pollen source for those early butterflies and hummingbirds and everybody else that needs the nectar. Because it's one of the earlier flowering plants, it produces nectar for those pollinators. The last one we're going to add is Sweet Bay Magnolia, Magnolia virginiana. I love magnolias. They hold a special place in my heart. And that shrub is about 20 feet tall, multi-stemmed, has really beautiful white pinkish flowers that kind of smell like lemon, and the leaves and the twigs also have a light scent to them, sort of like a bay leaf, the culinary herb that you might use. It too is one of the earlier flowering shrubs, so it provides a nectar source for not hummingbirds, but butterflies, and then it also has red berries in the fall, which is a food source for birds and for other mammals. So it's going to be another great choice pick. As we start to run out of the trees that we've already purchased, we're going to start adding new species in to keep it fresh and to keep it diverse. Plant diversity is really, really important because different plants support different organisms. And we really want to increase not only the variety and diversity of plants, we also want to increase the genetic diversity. So having multiple individuals of the same species, when they cross-pollinate each other, it creates progeny with different genes, which again, that genetic diversity is really beneficial for the changing climate that we're in. So that's it. We have also our fencing here. So when you pick up your tree kit, you're going to get a metal stake, you're going to get a fence, you're going to get some zip ties and your tree, and it's all going to be at once. You will be assigned to a specific parking spot when you come. That'll be in your email, or Lori or I will tell you where to go to get your specific tree kit pickup, so we can keep everybody separated from each other. And we just really, really appreciate everybody coming out and buying these tree kits, donating these tree kits. If you decided to donate a tree kit, that enables somebody that can't afford to buy a tree kit to be able to plant one on their property. And any tree kits that are not collected with the donation, that are any extras, they're going to be planted on public land. So these trees are going to just get out there one way or the other. We're really determined to get every tree in the ground as soon as possible. And if you have any questions, you can email me at sourlandstewards@sourland.org. And thank you for all that you're doing to help us save the Sourlands.